Today, I wanted to steer away from the topics I normally discuss to tell you a story that has always fascinated me. While I can be a sort of skeptic when it comes to believing outlandish tales of the supernatural, something about this story has always stuck with me. Maybe a gut feeling that the Suttons and their extended family and friends really did experience something unnatural in those woods, if not by way of aliens, perhaps something still nefarious. This is the story of the Kelly-Hopkinsville Encounter. A small farmhouse is nestled in the backwoods of Kentucky, belonging to a woman named Glennie Langford, whose 3 young children, Lonnie, Mary, and Carlton, live with her. Visiting her that weekend were her 2 grown children. First, J.C. Sutton, who brings with him his wife Eileen. Eileen's brother, named O.P. Baker, also joins them for the weekend. Glennie's other son, Elmer, or Lucky Sutton, brings with him his wife Farah, along with a man named Billy Ray Taylor, with whom Lucky worked with in a traveling carnival. Billy also brings his wife, June. At some point around 7 p.m., Billy Ray Taylor walked to the Suttons' well to fetch water for the household. But something above him caught his eye. He looked up to see a silver, saucer-shaped object flying right over the crown of the trees, leaving a colorful trail of exhaust behind it. Billy waited around just long enough to see the shape descend into a clearing somewhere within the woods, and then he ran back to the house, immediately telling his wife and friends what he had just seen. Everyone, including Billy's wife, believed he was playing a practical joke, trying to scare them. Some while later, Lucky joined Billy outside, perhaps to further ridicule his friend's claim. But as they walked towards the tree line, they saw something emerge from it. The 2 men reported seeing a 3-foot-tall, human-like shape emerging from the woods. Pictured as the creature as Lucky described it. As you can see, the creature was said to have an oversized head and ears, large, golden eyes, and long, thin arms that nearly dragged against the ground. The men also reported the creatures as having shimmering gray skin. This description of little gray men was later misquoted by some as little green men. This case is often credited with the popularization of depicting aliens in this likeness. As the creature got closer to the 2 men, it began to raise its arms above its head. The men were quickly snapped out of their awe and ran back inside to retrieve their guns, to the terror of everyone in the household. They saw the fear in Billy and Lucky's eyes as they loaded their guns, and they knew that it was not a joke. They began to post up at windows, keeping an eye out for any more of the creatures. All was silent until a scream came from the living room. It was Glennie, who had seen one of the creatures peering at her through a screen door. When Billy reached her first and saw the creature, he opened fire. It seemed some bullets were making contact, but they had no obvious impact on the creature, almost like its skin was impervious to them. Still, the thing scurried away, back into the dark of the woods. Lucky ran to the front door and opened it, perhaps to try and get rid of the thing for good if it was still creeping around. He saw nothing in the yard before him as he stepped outside, but those watching him from the living room saw something that made their blood run cold. A hand, or maybe a claw, was reaching down from above the door's overhang and touching Lucky's hair, and before he could realize what was happening to him, he was pulled back inside by his family. A shot rang out from Lucky's gun again, pointed at the overhang, aimed at whatever could have been stooping there. The creature then hit the ground and ran away from the house, seemingly unharmed. Some reports even say that the creature did a backflip before scurrying back into the woods. The family grouped back together and hid in the innermost part of the house, with some keeping an eye on the woods through the broken windows, guns still at the ready. 3 hours passed like this, the group only occasionally hearing sounds of footsteps running on the roof, until they finally mustered the courage to try and make a run for it. The 11 barreled through the front door and climbed into their cars, not seeing any more of the creatures, but not wanting to linger a moment more on that land. The convoy soon arrived at the Hopkinsville Police Department, where every person interviewed told the same story of what they had endured. Police were sent to the Sutton house to investigate, but reported no sign that anyone or anything other than the Suttons and their friends had been there. There was nothing on the roof, and the only damages came from their own gunfire. Police left after a few hours, not at all convinced that the 11 witnesses were telling the truth, and assured that there was nothing for them to fear on that land. The 11 drove back to the house, and hesitantly tried to get some rest. As Glennie laid in bed, tossing and turning, she began to feel that familiar sense that she was being watched. She opened her eyes to see those same glowing eyes peering in through her window once more. Glennie's scream woke everyone once again, and Lucky and Billy grabbed their guns, but did not reach her room in time to catch the creature. They knew then that they would not get any more sleep for the night, and the men kept watch until sunrise, when they said the creatures finally retreated. They would never see them again. The Sutton clan and their friends were met with intense ridicule and harassment in the aftermath of this incident. Some townspeople said that the men had probably been drunk off of moonshine, and either completely imagined the creatures, or perhaps mistook them for something else entirely. A popular theory is that the creatures in Kelly were not from outer space, but actually from the treetops. Great horned owls are the most common species of owl in Kentucky, and bear some striking similarities to the creatures as described by Billy and Lucky. The great horned owl stands on average a little taller than 2 feet, similar to the height estimated by the men. These owls also have golden or yellowish eyes that can appear to glow due to a phenomenon called eye shine. When light is shown on their face, a membrane in their eyes will reflect the light back. The owls also resemble the creatures in the pointed shape of their ears, and their long wings that hang at their sides. It's almost believable that a few drunk men could misinterpret a few territorial owls for monsters, and exaggerate parts of their story in retrospect, but we can actually dismiss this theory. Glennie was a very religious woman, and allowed no alcohol under her roof. Every witness seconds this, and there is no proof anyone in that house had been drinking that night. As for the saucer-like shape Billy saw in the woods, skeptics say he could have just mistaken it for a meteor. So the question becomes, could you be mistaken in this way? Foolish enough to confuse a common animal that almost everyone in that house would have been familiar with for an otherworldly creature with bulletproof skin? Do you think a dozen of your family members could all be swept up into hysteria by a few birds in the dark, and all report the same, very unbird-like features of these creatures by some coincidence? But say this wasn't a case of mistaken identity, but simply a stunt, perhaps for attention or money. After all, as flocks of people invaded the Sutton property in the days after the incident, the Suttons did begin charging a fee for admittance to their land, and a higher fee for a look inside their house. According to Lucky's daughter Geraldine, her father refused to talk about this incident to anyone. Her uncle J.C., she added, couldn't hold down a job for years afterwards. Her grandmother Glennie even sold their family home soon after, moving into an apartment complex in the town, saying she felt safer being surrounded by people. Clearly, it can't be said that this event, whatever it was, did not deeply affect those who were witness to it. So now I turn it over to you. Were these aliens that landed in the backwoods of Kentucky? Or are owls the most likely explanation for this event? Or do you believe it was nothing at all? A hoax, as it was described in the Project Blue Book files. I would love to hear your thoughts and theories on this incident. And as always, thank you for watching, and stay safe out there.